it's a weird thing that goes on. I won't even get into what the thought was traveling through my highway was. But basically, you get into this whole thing where you start just piling on all this fruit. And I see a lot of pictures on Facebook, and I'm like, I'm looking at the label, and it starts with a 4. I'm like, no. You know what that means, right? When you go to the market, and on the label it starts with a 4, that means conventional, right? Do we want anything conventional? What does that word even mean? That's like average, standard, standardized, right? Like whoever they are at the top of, levels or pyramid, they're trying to standardize everything and everyone, right? So the word conventional, if you take it out to its ultimate conclusion, is basically just staying average. Now, to me, I'm all about expanding human potential. So that's not even like a consideration in my world, right? In the message that I promote out to other people. Do with it what you like. But to me, it's like, no, I'm here to expand human potential. So whenever you get those labels, make sure it has a 9 in front of it. And if it has an 8, just walk. Oh, don't even get away from it. Or a 3. You know what the 3 is, right? Does anyone know?
Same as a 5.
Yeah, if it's anything other than 9, I'm just like, man, this is too much. But yeah, the 3 I believe is GMO. And that's a whole other thing. By the way, fruit without seeds or food without seeds is basically a genetically modified food. Just so we're not confused about that, right? Because that food did not come out of nature. That watermelon didn't come out without its seeds. And, well, it obviously did, but they modified the growing environment and the seed to produce it that way, right? And by the way, seeds in fruit and food, especially seeds in fruit, are very nutritious. The seed in a watermelon is one of the best sources of magnesium. So I would highly suggest eat the seeds, eat more seeds. In fact, it helps you become more fertile.
I've heard they were poisonous. Have you heard that?
I might have heard it, but I don't believe it. I'm not dead.
It also doesn't cause you to grow a watermelon in your mouth.
No, it doesn't. No. It's not literal. The black seed, yeah. Well, it's one of the best sources of magnesium, and magnesium is like, that's the one. Like if I could turn you on to anything in the nutrition world, it's like we need to get onto magnesium-rich foods. Magnesium is the #1 mineral for the functionality of our human heart. You guys aware of this? For cardiovascular health, our heart uses 2 minerals in particular for optimization. One is magnesium, the other is potassium.
What about apple seeds?
You can eat those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and try it out. People come to me sometimes, and they're like, can I eat this? Can I blend the avocado pig? Can I do this? Like, listen, people are surviving on fried chicken, on French fries, on all kinds of weird vitamin pills, and the most toxic thing they call water, but that's not water. Like fluoridated, chlorinated water. That the #1 particulate in tap water, by the way, is toilet paper.
Oh.
Used toilet paper. I see your face. You're like, no. I can't buy it. I can't believe that. And I couldn't believe that either until I looked it up. I was like, oh man, no wonder it tastes like that. Check this one out. I gave I'm staying with my parents for a couple weeks for this last week, and definitely not on the same program here. And I mean, my grandmother, as soon as I got chocolate into her mouth, though, she was like, oh, okay, I can do this. So we were like, okay, we'll work with that. But I finally got her first green juice today, this morning. I made 64 ounces, and then I was like, wait a minute, I need to give you some. And she's like, okay. And she's like, I need to drink my vegetables. But I gave her, this is a mind bender. This one right here is a mind bender. Up to a couple days ago, she has not tasted water. At least in 50 years. Until a couple days ago. And she said to me, and it wasn't spring water, I'm a spring water hunter, but it wasn't even spring water, it was ionized water, right? And I gave her some, and she's like, oh, it doesn't taste like water. I was like, whoa. I was like, no. I just smiled. I was like, no. See, that's the thing. this is water. And she's like, oh, I get it. Wow, that's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, and we could go down the whole water trip for a long time. But let's rewind, let's reroute our conversation back to the nervous system. So everything I'm talking about, by the way, is feeding into that. We're just kind of like taking a detour. So the nervous system is so powerful. Now, how do we protect our nervous system? First off, there's a massive amount of neurosis in our society. And it's not just when you get older and you start to break down and actually show the symptoms of it, right? It's been estimated that Alzheimer's, is actually dormant in the body, and it's developing 20 to 30 years prior to the actual diagnosis, right? So that ought to set up the stage for everyone in their own life. This is the same with that zodiac sign. This is the same with diabetes. This is the same with anything, actually. Because here's an idea. Change happens in an instant. Obesity, sickness, despair, sorrow, depression happens over a lifetime. And you can make a choice to actually change right here, right now. It's just a decision. Now, how do we protect our nervous system, that electrical highway that's pulsating throughout the body, allowing me to move around, allowing the neurosynaptic connections that form thoughts take place? Well, there's something called myelin. Everyone repeat after me. This one is this is the one. Everyone say myelin. Myelin. Say it one more time. Myelin. Myelin. One more time. Myelin. Myelin. You know what you just did? You myelinated myelin in your brain. So I was doing a lot of research on longevity, and like I always do, that's part of my thing. My number is 300. That's my goal for myself, is 300. And I can see, actually, the more I get into it, I'm like, okay, I actually can kind of see how that might be possible. 300 years old. Young. So as I was doing research into I was getting back into personal development. I've been into personal development all my life. The Earl Nightingale, the Napoleon Hill, what the mind of man can conceive and believe it can achieve, right? I can conceive that free energy is possible. I can conceive that everyone in this room can transform themselves within an instant, right? Now, by reinforcing that over and over, I'm doing something called myelinating, a phrase, a mantra, an activity, right? When I shoot baskets, I'm myelinating that activity. Now, what does that mean? I read this book called The Talent Code. It's by a man named Daniel Coyle, and I've known about myelin actually for a long time. But my whole thing about myelin was like, okay, it's the nerve fiber insulator. It's like a copper wire that protects the electrical circuitry that allows you to be conductive, that allows you to think and move. So I was like, that's pretty important. We should probably be feeding that, because that, like oxidation, right? When we get oxidized from the environment, like you've heard this one, right? The sun causes skin, zodiac sign, right? The skin, that whole, the sun is killing you, right? Or is it the stuff that's in your body cooking under the sun? And the stuff people are putting on their skin, cooking. Is that sensible?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, so I was like, in all the rancid oils, that's the number one thing, by the way, just to punch that one. Rancid oils. It's worse than the meat. It's worse than it's up there with the dairy and all that stuff. It really, rancid oils like margarine, unsaturated oils that basically keep volatile. So when you're trying to cook with olive oil, for example, we've been told for years olive oil is a health food, right? Yes, if you get medicinal olive oil, if you get the good stuff, the stuff from Italy or Greece, the Greek olive oil, the real stuff, cold pressed virgin olive oil, and you use it as a dressing, that stuff's phenomenal. In fact, it's incredible for your hormones, actually. It helps inhibit what's called aromatization, and that's basically when your androgens, or your testosterone, or for women, your progesterone, converts over into estrogen. And that's a topic right there. Does anyone even know what I'm talking about? Okay, so when we have something called estrogen dominance, That's an over elevation of our estrogens. And then our androgens, which are like our anabolic growth hormones, like our testosterone, progesterone, pregnenolone, human growth hormone, IGF, all that stuff that we need to create anabolic effects in the body, basically building and growing, right? When we have too much estrogen, it starts to actually displace all those, and it becomes more catabolic. It starts to actually break us down, and that is being correlated right now as one of the main contributors to zodiac sign of all kinds, especially
Breast cancer.
yes. Oh, you guys can say it.
You know, I
Yeah.
have a friend that I'm buying progesterone from him.
Progesterone cream.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he said we have too much estrogen.
Yeah, okay, so I actually, I think progesterone cream, if you get the right stuff, is actually a really smart thing, especially for women. And this is stuff I've had conversations with doctors, and I've looked into it, is that it's actually really good for helping to help your progesterone production. And actually is good for men too in their later years, but done much more like sporadically. Like it's kind of like this idea of, this is how nutrition is, by the way. It's kind of like this idea of like musical chairs, where you don't do the same thing every single day. Right? Meal plans, like it doesn't work that way. You can't do the same thing every single day and expect to get progressive results. You actually have to flip it up, right? So like musical chairs, like you're gonna flip it up, and then eventually one seat's gonna be open, it's gonna get filled with something else. Like that could be the progesterone, but then the next day it's going boom, 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 and then the progesterone's out. Does that make sense? So you have to kind of do it sporadically, and that's actually how I advise doing a lot of different things, like different supplements, different like stuff like superfoods, stuff that's really powerful. Like for example, maca. Since we're talking about the hormones, everyone's familiar with maca. Maca, oh yeah, maca is powerful. If you use it sporadically, if you use it every single day, you'll develop that tolerance, and it won't really give you the same effects. But if you do it periodically, maybe like 2-3 days on, 3 days off, that kind of thing, it actually can be very, very hormonally boosting, but more like regulated. Like it's not stuff like pine pollen, which is very androgenic. It's very testosterone activated. It opens up the testosterone channels in our body and allows that to produce itself. So what I just said could be really important, actually, for a lot of guys. And I'm not just talking about like libido, I'm talking about longevity. Pine pollen is very powerful for testosterone production, and to some extent for women too. Because women, we were brainwashed like, no, men, it's all testosterone fest, right? That's the one, right? In the locker room, so I guess fest of testosterone, right? Well, actually, women have to have that kind of dialed in as well. So all these things are really important in their appropriate dosage, and you have to do your own investigation on it. But I just want to throw those ideas out there, kind of plant a seed, and see how it sprouts in your mind. Back to the myelin sheath. Okay, so